Good evening, my dear students. I welcome you all to today's session of Auditing and Assurance subject. So students are already here. Good evening, Pratiksha, Astha, Charu, Sandeep, Aanchal, Pooja, Tanu, Abhita. A very good evening to all of you. So we have started chapter number 3, which is Audit Documentation and Audit Evidence, right? And in our last session, we have already completed Essay 230, whereby we understood everything related to audit documentation. And I hope that whatever we have covered in our last session is absolutely clear to all of you. And in case you still have any doubt, you can always send in your queries, right? So in the last session, we have discussed in brief about audit evidence. I'll be taking this topic of audit evidence, that is Essay 500 from the starting today itself. Okay? So what is audit evidence? And in our last session, we understood the meaning, the dictionary meaning of audit evidence, whereby we saw that audit evidence, the synonym of audit evidence is what? Proof. And the dictionary meaning is what? Facts or signs that make you believe that something is true, right? So students try to understand that, see, auditing is a very logical process, right? And we as an auditor, like we as auditors, we have to see the actualities of the situation. Like we need to conduct a critical examination of the financial statements. We need to conduct an objective analysis. What is objective? Unbiased analysis of the financial statement, right? So if I as an auditor, I want to say that the financial statements reflect a true and fair view, that need to be based on some proof, some audit evidence, right? Same way, if I as an auditor, I want to say that the financial statement do not reflect a true and fair view, that is also to be based upon what? Audit evidence, right? Because if the opinion is not based on any proof, if there is some careless checking, right, negligent checking on the part of the auditor, what will happen? It will lead to what? Legal actions against the auditor, right? Thereby leading to what? Consequential loss of what? Professional standing and prestige of the auditor, right? So students, we are expert. We are giving an expert opinion as auditors on the financial statement of our client. So our opinion needs to be based on audit evidence. We need to have an audit evidence in order to base our opinion, right? So this is the importance of audit evidence. And where will you get all the requirements relating to audit evidence? The name of the essay is Audit Evidence, and it deals with the auditor's responsibility, right? To do what? Auditor's responsibility to obtain audit evidence. And please tell me, how will an auditor obtain audit evidence? By performing audit procedures. So I can say that Essay 500 deals with auditor's responsibility to design and perform audit procedures, okay, to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. What is meant by sufficiency? What is meant by appropriateness? We will be doing this in detail. But you will see that in the entire chapter, in the entire syllabus of your audit, whenever we are saying that the auditor needs to obtain an audit evidence, it will have a prefix. Like it will be always like the auditor needs to obtain a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Any audit evidence on which the auditor is basing his opinion, he's using it as a base, it needs to be sufficient and appropriate. And I've told you in first chapter number 1, when we were discussing chapter number 1, that sufficiency is a measure of what? Quantity. And appropriateness is a measure of what? Quality of audit evidence. And we will be doing this in detail in today's session. Okay? So back to our responsibility of auditor in terms of Essay 500. So students, it is to design and perform audit procedures. ठीक है, क्यों करना है? In order to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Okay, why? क्यों obtain करना है? To be able to draw reasonable conclusions. What conclusions? On which to base the auditor's opinion, right? So I can say this is the objective of the auditor also. You will see when we will be going modules that the objective of the auditor in terms of SA 500 is this only. What? To design and perform audit procedures. Just try to think logically why the auditor will design and perform audit procedure. To obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Okay, why the auditor want to obtain audit evidence? To be able to draw reasonable conclusions. And why? Because he needs to base his opinion on such conclusions. Clear? So the objectives, the responsibilities of the auditor with respect to SA 500 we have just seen, right? Now I told you that SA 500 explains as to what constitutes audit evidence. So we will be now discussing the definition of audit evidence. See, we have seen the synonym, we have seen the dictionary meaning, but the technical definition that is given by SA 500 is yet to be seen. So let us just have a look at the definition which is given by SA 500. I hope the screen is visible because students are saying the screen is not visible. Okay. So audit evidence. So in terms of SA 500 says that audit evidence is the information used by the auditor. Okay? See, auditor is using this information to base his opinion. So who is using the information? Auditor. Okay. For what purpose? In arriving at the conclusions. What conclusions? Auditor's opinion is based. So it is somewhat, the definition is similar to the objective that we have just read, right? So now we'll be discussing each and every aspect of this definition in detail. So the first word is what? Information, right? Information used by the auditor, right? In arriving at the conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. Now students try to understand what constitutes this term information. So this information is of two types which has been given by SA 500. So tell me quickly, I need your replies. What do you understand by the term information in the definition of audit evidence? What will constitute an information according to you? Will the financial statements, the ledgers, the general entries, the calculation sheets, the invoices, the contract copies, can they be used as an audit evidence by the auditor to consider as a base for his opinion? Quickly send in your replies. Quickly send in your replies. What, according to you, constitutes information? I will wait for next 10 seconds, then I'll start. So, information. Let's see, I'll receive your replies. Meanwhile, I'll just start. There is a time lag. So, see, whatever information is contained in the accounting records that underlines the financial statement. Now, what is meant by accounting records underline the financial statements? See, your accounting records, like the journal entries, I mean to say the accounting records of the client, the general entries, the ledgers, the invoices, the contract copies, the various calculations of, cost or other working sheets that are made by the management. all these they act as a basis for preparation of financial statement. That is why the term used is what? Accounting records underlying the financial statement. That is, these accounting records are used as a basis to prepare the financial statement. So first part is what? Information that is used as an audit evidence is what? First is the accounting records underlying the financial statement, right? Now, students, the other type of information, the second point is what? Other information, right? What kind of other information? Now, quickly just imagine that whether the minutes of the meeting, minutes of the board meeting, are they used to prepare the financial statement? Or the manuals of the internal control of an organization, are they used in preparing financial statement? No, right? But all these documents, they authenticates the information contained in accounting records, right? They help the auditor to validate the various transactions that are or account balances that are getting reflected in the financial statement. So I can say an auditor can use the following information as audit evidence. First is what? Any information contained in the accounting records underlying the financial statement. I hope underlying the financial statement is clear. So students have started, sending the replies. Saurabh is saying that containing in book of accounts. Sakshi is saying vouchers. Darshan is saying information in underlying accounting records, right? Okay? And the other kind of information is what? Other information that validates the information contained in accounting records, like your minutes of the meeting. Let's take another example. Suppose, see, when I am using the ledger copies of what? Debtors or creditors as an audit evidence when I'm verifying the debtor balance of my client. Okay? So what is this? This is an accounting underlying the financial statement, right? Now related to this, there is another evidence which is, though not helping in preparation of financial statement, but yes, it validates my accounting record. What is that? Let's say in order to verify the debtor balance, I send a confirmation request, right, to the debtor, that dear debtor, please tell me what is the balance of my client in your books of account. The debtor, he replies to me. Now that confirmation letter, though this is not used in the preparation of financial statement, but this helps me as an auditor in authenticating all the information that I have considered where as accounting records. Okay? So students are saying minutes. Yes, ma'am, it is used for auditors to cross tally. Correct, Pooja. Then that's it. Okay? So information can be divided into two parts. What is that? So let us just have a look at the screen. So information used by the auditor. Okay, now we understood that audit evidence is to be used by the auditor. Management will not use it now. Auditor is conducting the audit now. Auditor is conducting an independent examination. So this information will be used by the auditor. And now we know that why the auditor is using this information, because he is arriving at the conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based, right? Now information can be of two types: information contained in accounting records and other information, right? So information contained in accounting records can be what? Your accounting entries, your accounting records, your invoices, contracts, ledgers, journal entries, your worksheets, spreadsheets, computations, reconciliations, etc. Right? And what can be other information? The other information that authenticates. Authenticates is what? The dictionary meaning is what? Validates. Hana? Validates the accounting record. I gave you example of what? Debtor's balance. So in order to verify the debtor balance, one information that can be used by auditor is what? The ledgers. Okay? The aging schedule that has been prepared by the management. That will come under this clause, information contained in accounting records. And with respect to other information related to debtors, it can be the confirmations that the auditor will receive from the debtors. And the example is what? The minutes, the written confirmations from the debtors or the creditors, and the manuals whereby how the internal controls are working, that is mentioned. So just try to understand this example also. How the internal controls work, the manuals, the instructions related to that as such is not used in the preparation of financial statement, right? But yes, for an auditor, they serve as an audit evidence. Okay? Now, when we are discussing about the information, just tell me, suppose I as an auditor, I obtain certain information from the management, right? From the client organization. Okay? Tell me quickly, I need answers. Students, please make this session interactive. Okay? Send in your replies, whatever comes to your mind whenever I ask you a question. Okay? So tell me, when any information is received by the auditor, is to be used by the auditor, and that information is received from the client itself, right? What will the auditor first of all check? Should he start using that information as audit evidence? Yeah, before using it as audit evidence, auditor will check something. Quickly send in your replies. My question to you is, when we as auditors, we obtain certain information from the client organization, okay, that we are, thinking of using as an audit evidence, should I consider something or should I straight away accept it as an audit evidence? So Ria is saying, ma'am, we'll consider the validity. Okay. More replies, please. So students, when I'm asking for, let's say, take an example that I ask the client that management, listen, please provide me the information related to related parties. Right? So I may feel the question that may come into my mind as an auditor is whether this information is accurate or not, whether this information is complete or not, right? And whether it is, sufficient, it is precise for my purpose, for the auditor's purpose. Okay? So students are saying we will check the invoices, authenticity we will check it, we'll verify its validity, correct. Okay? So I can say that I was giving you example of related party transaction. So I asked the management that management, please give me a detail of the related parties. So I may be skeptical, as in I may think that, okay, let me just see whether this information is what accurate or not, whether this information is what complete or not, right? And whether this information is sufficiently precise, that is right, and detailed as required for my purpose. Okay? So I can say when any information is received from the client organization, I as an auditor, first of all, I'll consider few things. Okay? Now let us try to understand one more concept relating to this information. Now there can be a case whereby, let's say, some legal case is going against the company. Okay? The company is what? The client. Okay? And the client, the management, they have hired certain advocates. External legal counsels have been hired. Okay? So I can say that management or the company is taking the help of what? Management's expert. The company is taking the help of what? Management expert. Okay? So first of all, let me just tell you what is a management expert. Okay? So students, see, abhi what we are discussing about what? The information. The first word of our definition, audit evidence, whereby we started discussing information, and we saw that it can be of two types: accounting records underlying the financial statement and other information that authenticates this information. Clear? Then we understood that if any information is obtained from the client itself, so I as an auditor, what all will I see? The accuracy, the completeness, whether it is sufficiently precise, and whether it is proper, it is detailed information or not. Okay? Then I asked you about management expert. Now, what is a management expert? see, it might be possible that the organization, the client organization, it is taking help of, it is seeking advice of some legal expert, right? For, let's say, a case is going on, so the management is in discussion with the external legal counsel as to what is the probability of the outcome of the case. Okay? In order to be sure as to whether they need to show that case in contingent liability, or they need to make a provision for with respect to the compensation or maybe the amount that they need to pay, right? Now, tell me, the management is taking help of its expert, okay, for preparation of financial statement. Now, when the auditor comes, and now the question is whether the auditor can use the management expert's information as an audit evidence, and if yes, what all I as an auditor should I consider before using the information of the management expert. Clear? So what is management experts? I can say any individual, okay, or any organization who has expertise in the field other than accounts and auditing. Why? Because accounts and auditing, we are the experts now. So in a field that we don't understand, management is taking the help of an expert in that field. Okay? So before using the information provided by that expert, by the management experts, what according to you should I as an auditor consider? Should I consider that information as audit evidence without thinking anything? Or should I apply my professional judgment? Quickly tell me, what all will you consider? So, management expert, information has been provided by him to the organization in order to prepare the financial statements. See, management expert can be, environment expert. Suppose my client is there and the client is having factories in the northeastern states. Okay? So in those areas, the forest departments or, the various taxes related to the environment cess and all are applicable. So the management may take the help of an environment expert, right? Or the second example is what of legal expert. So before using the information given by management expert, what should I as an auditor consider? So students are saying, ma'am, capabilities and objectives of the expert. And Shraddha is saying, ma'am, competence, capabilities and objectivity of the expert, which is right answer. So the first point is the competence, the capabilities and the objective, how objective the expert is. Now, what is meant by competence? Whether he has the required skill and knowledge or not. Competence is what the area in which he is giving an opinion, he is giving his views, whether he has that skill and knowledge or not, whether he is capable of giving his views or opinion in that field. And objectivity is, now all of you must be knowing. What is objectivity? Quickly send me the reply. What is objectivity? Quickly, I need answers. We have discussed this in detail in chapter number 1. So objectivity is what? Unbiased behavior, uninfluenced. Okay? So first of all, management experts' competence, capabilities and objectivities to be checked, right? Secondly, before using the information given by the management expert, I as an auditor, I will also obtain an understanding of the work of the expert. Okay? I will obtain an understanding, okay, what exactly is his work? What exactly is the contribution of the expert towards the preparation of the financial statements? So I'll try to obtain an understanding. Why? See, if you remember, we have done Essay 220 relating to what? Quality control. Okay? Relating to quality of an audit, right? Then we did Standards on Quality Control 1. right? SA 220 says that the engagement partner is responsible for maintaining the quality of an audit engagement, audit of an audit assignment. And standard of quality control 1 says that an audit firm has to establish the policies and procedures so as to ensure what? Quality in the audit of financial statement. Now, though we as an auditor, we are using the management experts work. Okay? That expert has been hired by the management. But students, we as an auditor, we are responsible for our opinion. We as an auditor, we are responsible for maintaining the quality of our opinion. So before accepting anybody's work as audit evidence on which I'm going to base my opinion, I will have to obtain an understanding of the work of that expert. Why? Because for my work, whatever I'm going to write in the opinion, I as an auditor, I am responsible. Later on, I cannot say that management expert said this, that's why I have given this opinion. No, I am responsible now. So I'll obtain an understanding of the work of the management experts. And last but not the least, I'll see whether the information that I need for my audit purpose, whether that information which has been provided by management expert, whether that is appropriate for my purposes or not, whether I'll be able to use it as an audit evidence or not. Okay? So students are saying independence, unbiasedness, objectivity, freedom. Very good. All answers are correct. But as I always say that this is a professional exam. A lot is expected out of you. So let us look at what exactly the technical words are, or what exactly the provisions which are contained in SA 500 are. Okay? So let me just take you through the module 1. So we started with definition of audit evidence, whereby we have seen that audit evidence is what? Information used by auditor in arriving at the conclusions on which auditor's opinion is based. And information, now we know it is of what? 2 types. That is in both information contained in accounting records underlying the financial statement. Student, I hope the word underlying is now clear. What basically it means? That financial statements are prepared based on what? Accounting records. So these accounting records are the basis. They underlines the financial statement and other information. Okay? So let us now see what is meant by information contained in accounting records. Your accounting entries, your invoices, contracts, your subsidiary ledgers, journal entries, your worksheets, spreadsheets. See, all these are used in the preparation of financial statement. So first is that. And what is second? Other information that authenticates. Authenticates is what? Validates the accounting records. ठीक है? तो any information जो ऊपर वाले information को validate करता है, authenticate करता है, and also supports the auditor's rationale. Rationale is what? Auditor's reason, or you can say auditor's belief behind the true and fair presentation of the financial statement. And what can be the examples? The minutes of the meeting. Okay? One, after having looked at the minutes of the meeting, let's say any resolution is passed. And as per the Companies Act, it is to be passed after passing a special resolution. So auditor can always have a look at the minutes of the meeting to see whether that is valid or not. Right? Written confirmations from trade receivables or trade payables. I explained you the example of debtors in detail. See, in the first point with respect to debtors, what can come? The ledgers, the aging schedules prepared of debtors prepared by management. And here what can come? The written confirmations. Okay? Manuals containing details of internal control, and an auditor uses a combination of both the information. Okay? Okay. Now, what is the objective? I told you that it is similar to what SA 500 says. So SA 500 says the responsibility of the auditor is what? The objective and responsibility are the same. Okay? To design and perform audit procedures in such a way to enable the auditor to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to be able to draw reasonable conclusions on which to base the auditor's opinion. Right? And then we discussed about if the information is produced by the entity, what will auditor see? The accuracy. the completeness, ठीक है, whether it is sufficiently precise. What is the dictionary meaning of precise? Whether it is right, correct only, right, and detailed, ठीक है. And now about management expert. So I'm getting certain doubts with respect to management expert. I'll take this topic again quickly. ठीक है. So who is a management expert? So I can say any individual or an organization, ठीक है, whose expertise in a field other than audit and accounts. Why other than audit and accounts? Because in audits and account we are the experts, no, right? So whose expertise other than in the field of auditing and account is used by the management in what? In preparation of financial statement. I gave you example of legal expert, right? So whether to create a provision with respect to the liability that may arise, or whether to show it as a contingent liability, right? Or let's say the environment expert. We are not an expert in that field now, okay? So if the auditor, see what is mentioned here, when information to be used as audit evidence has been prepared using the work of management expert, ठीक है, the auditor shall, to the extent necessary, having regard to the significance of that expert's work for the auditor's purposes, auditor shall, what shall auditor do? He shall evaluate the competence, the capability and objectivity of that expert. ठीक है, before using his work, the work of management expert, auditor will see whether that expert is competent enough, he is capable, and he will, whether he's working objectively or not. ठीक है. And now competence is what? The skill, the knowledge that is required in that field, whether he has that or not. ठीक है. Obtain an understanding of the work of the expert and evaluate the appropriateness of the expert's work as audit evidence for the relevant assertion. Now, with respect to assertion, we have discussed in brief a number of times, and today or in the next session, we'll be taking this topic in detail. Okay? As of now, what is assertion? Whatever is represented by the management in the financial statements. If management is saying that there is a building worth ₹1 crore, so what is asserted out of that? That management is trying to assert that the building actually exists, that the company is having a ownership over that building, that the historical cost less the depreciation is 1 crore, right? So these are all what? Assertions, and in detail we'll be doing in the next session. Okay? Then a very simple question. Tell me, if there is, suppose I as an auditor, I got 2 evidence, okay? And there is inconsistency between these 2 evidence, or any audit evidence that I have obtained, I have a doubt over the reliability. Reliability is what? Whether to trust it or not. So I am doubtful as to whether to rely on that audit evidence or not. Okay? Tell me, what should I do? Should I just say that I will not do the work? I am withdrawing from the engagement. Is this the option? Correct option? Tell me. My question to you is, if there is inconsistency between 2 evidence, okay? Or I as an auditor, I have a doubt over the reliability of the audit evidence, what should I do? As simple as that, just perform additional audit procedures. Okay? Let's try to understand this with the help of an example. Let's say you have the ledgers of debtors. Okay? This is one evidence. Hana? You ask the management to provide you with an aging schedule as to how old the debtors are. Okay? This is also one of the audit evidence. Now there is a mismatch. There is an inconsistency between these 2 audit evidence. Now what will I do? Should I straightforward mention this in my audit report? No. I can always perform additional audit procedures. What additional audit procedure can I perform in this case? I can always seek, external confirmation from the debtors. I can always ask the debtors, you do one thing, you send me what is the balance of my client in your books of accounts. So this is what additional procedure. Okay? So if there is inconsistency or there is doubt, what can auditor do? He shall determine modifications or addition to the audit process which are necessary to resolve the matter, and he shall consider the effect of the matter on other aspects of the audit. What is meant by he shall consider the effect of the matter on other aspects? Let's say if I have asked the management to give something to me in writing, which is what written representation. We will be doing this in detail in SF 580. So what exactly is this? See, I can always ask the management that management, see, you do one thing, you give this thing to me in writing. Okay? Let's say with respect to a debtor balance only, I as an auditor am unable to obtain external confirmation from debtor Mr. Shah. Okay? So I went to the management, I told them that management, please give this to us in writing, and whatever management gave you in writing and whatever is appearing in the ledgers, there is difference between this. Okay? There is a difference between these two documents. Now, the second point says, consider the effect on other aspects of audit. If management has not given you correct written representation, it might be possible that the other written representations that have been given to you by the management, they are also not correct. You may need to revisit all those written representation. So consider the effect of this matter. There was inconsistency between the representation which was given by management with respect to debtor Sham and the ledger balance that is appearing. Okay? So consider the effect. It might be possible that management is not providing you with the correct written representation in other areas also. Okay? So what is the course of action available to the auditor? Perform additional audit procedures. Now modify your audit procedures and consider the effect of the matter, if any, on the other aspects of the audit. Okay? Clear? Modification is what? Change. Sandeep, to modify is to change. Hana? Change your, alter your audit procedures now. If you were thinking that with respect to some aspect, I will, let's say with respect to debtors confirmation, I'll tally the aging schedule, I'll look at the ledger copies, modify it now, go for further procedures, obtain external confirmation. Okay? And Sandeep, you are correct that he will do further procedures and obtain another evidence and confirmation. Okay? He should carry out other audit procedures, Sukanya is saying. Okay, additional audit procedures, Nitya is saying, resolve the matter using modification, who is saying Shraddha, correct. ठीक है, तो समझ आता है, ऐसे नहीं बोलना ना that I will not do the audit or I will withdraw from the engagement. No, you will modify. You have the option to modify your audit procedures, and you shall consider the effect of such matter on the other aspects of audit. Now, my next question to you people: tell me, when an auditor is obtaining the audit evidence, when the auditor is obtaining the audit evidence, okay, by performing the audit procedures, tell me what all can be the source of audit evidence. From where can I get the audit evidence? From what all options are available to me as an auditor to obtain audit evidence? Quickly tell me what all options are available to me as an auditor to obtain my audit evidence. Okay, first I'll tell you, by performing audit procedures. Okay? So first option that is available for to me as an auditor to obtain audit evidence is by performing the audit procedures. Okay? Now I need answers. Quickly tell me what all options, what all the auditor can do. Audit evidence लेना है ना, उसी के basis पे तो opinion देना है. तो from where can I get the audit evidence? So first I have told you that by performing the audit procedures. Okay? So students are saying good. Ria is saying from books of accounts. So I can say from accounting records, first is correct. Okay? Then J is saying analysis. So I can say audit procedures. That was my answer. Okay? From entity and third party, Charu, it will mean what? Entity and third party. And we have just seen management expert. So that can also be one of the option. Hina is saying management and Anjali is saying external confirmation. See, when I as an auditor, I am obtaining external confirmation. What am I doing? I am doing audit procedure only. So good. So students, see, primarily the audit evidence is obtained by what? By performing the audit procedures. However, audit evidence can be obtained from accounting records, management expert, and just try to think, suppose I was the auditor of the organization last year also, and this year also I'm continuing as an auditor. Can I use audit evidence? He may come across audit evidences that are supporting each other. One audit evidence, he may obtain audit evidence that support each other. For example, one evidence is showing that debtor balance is 10 lakh and the other evidence is also showing that the debtor balance is 10 lakh. So I can say these evidence, they are supportive. They are corroborative. What is the dictionary meaning of the word corroborative? Support, supportive. So they will are what? They are supporting each other. The two evidence with respect to a single assertion, they may support each other. That is, they are corroborative in nature. Second can be, they may contradict each other. One of the audit evidence with respect to debtors is saying that the balance is 9 lakhs. Total debtors are 9 lakhs. However, ledger's balance, it is appearing to be 10 lakhs. So I can say they are contradicting each other. They are contradicting each other. And students, can I say that absence of any information is also one of the audit evidence? Absence of an information is also one of the audit evidence. Let's take an example. I as an auditor, I am working as an audit. I am conducting the audit of, say, XYZ Limited. I asked the management of XYZ Limited that management, please give me this in writing. Please give me a written representation that the balance of so and so person in your books is correctly shown. And the management says that we cannot provide you with this information, with this representation. So absence of the information, the management has refused to provide you with information. So I can say absence of such information also constitutes what? Audit evidence. So by now you have understood that there can be audit evidence whereby they are what? Supporting each other. That is, they are corroborative in nature. There can be evidence which are contradicting each other. One evidence is saying balance of debtor should be 9 lakh. The other evidence is saying it should be 10 lakh. They are contradicting each other. And the absence of information also constitutes what? Your audit evidence. Clear? So let us just have a look at your module whereby all these is written. See. Sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence. So, the audit evidence is primarily obtained from audit procedures performed during the course of audit. However, it also includes information obtained from other sources like your previous audits. So if I give you an MCQ or true or false, that whether the information that has been obtained by the auditor in the previous year audit, whether that can be used as an audit evidence, so yes, it can be used. And it can be, the audit evidence can be received from what? Accounting records or the work of management expert. Audit evidence comprises both information that supports or corroborates. Corroborates, the dictionary meaning is support. ठीक है, the management assertion, and any information that contradicts such assertion. Management is saying the ledgers are reflecting a balance of 10 lakhs, total of 10 lakhs debtors, ठीक है, but when you obtain the external confirmation, the external confirmation showed that the balance of debtors in books of the client is what, 9 lakhs. It is contradicting the management assertion. In addition, in some cases, absence of information, for example, management's refusal to provide the requested representation, also constitutes what? Audit evidence. So quickly tell me whether the concept that we have done so far related to audit evidence, whether this is clear or not. Students, right now I'm sharing the PDF. I hope that is visible to you. Pooja, I hope it is visible. Abhi I am not writing anything on the Word file. ठीक है? So I hope everything is clear by like whatever we have discussed so far. I hope everything is clear. Quickly send in your replies. Students, I want this session to be really very interactive, right? And I will pause here for a minute in order to tell you a very important thing, that you are understanding these concepts with the faculties, right? But students, learning is very important. Start learning the keywords. Start learning after understanding. Whatever you will be writing on the paper, that will only fetch you good marks. Start picking up the keywords. ठीक है? तो start learning. And please send in your replies whether you have understood or not. Okay, students are saying, ma'am, all clear. So all clear, I'm assuming that everything is clear. ठीक है? So now, a very important concept. I told you that in the entire chapter, students, you see that a prefix is there with audit evidence, which is what? Sufficient and appropriate. Whenever any essay will tell the auditor, say essay 500, whenever it is saying that auditor obtain audit evidence, it will always say auditor obtains sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Sufficiency and appropriateness, what is meant by all these terms, we will discuss just now. ठीक है? So, so now I have shared the Word file. ठीक है, पूजा? ठीक है, तो students are saying Charu, Sushil, Vandana, Abhita, understood, ma'am. Okay, good. So what is sufficiency? So see, sufficiency is a measure of what? Quantity. ठीक है? So whether audit evidence is sufficient for the auditor's purpose. ठीक है? Now tell me, is there some machine or is there any authority which will be telling the auditor, okay, auditor, itna audit evidence is sufficient? What do you think? Who advises the auditor as to how much, what should be the quantity of audit evidence? Quickly, I need answers. Quickly tell me, who tells auditor that itna audit evidence is sufficient? See, audit evidence need to be sufficient and appropriate is been given in essay 500. ठीक है? And essay 500 says there are certain factors which will affect your judgment as to what is sufficient. But as such, students, there is no standard, quantity ki 1 kg of audit evidence is sufficient or 2 kg of audit evidence. No. It depends upon auditor's professional judgment. See, we are an expert. We are giving an expert opinion on the financial statement, and with the passage of time, with the experience, with the professional judgment, by applying professional skepticism, auditor can always decide as to what is to be considered as sufficient, right, with respect to what? Audit evidence. So it depends upon auditor's professional judgment, right? So just now answer one of the question. ठीक है, Pooja is saying, ma'am, risk of material misstatement. ठीक है? First of all, tell me where have you studied risk of material misstatement in detail? I want the essay number and the name. Risk of material misstatement. So I'll get the replies. Meanwhile, I'll continue with my topic. Students, we have seen that sufficiency is what? The quantity. It is a measure of quantity as to how much evidence is to be obtained with respect to a particular assertion. And what is assertion? Abhi ke liye I have told you, and in detail we'll be discussing in the next session. Okay? So tell me, if auditor assesses that the risk of material misstatement is high, the risk of material misstatement is high, a risk that there may be misstatement in the financial statement, whether due to fraud or error, it is high. Tell me whether I, as an auditor, whether I should obtain more audit evidence or less. Risk of material misstatement is high. So just write more or less, more audit evidence or less audit evidence. And yes, Sandeep, you are correct. You have studied about risk of material misstatement in essay 315. The name of the essay is Identifying and Assessing the Risk of Material Misstatement through Understanding the Entity and its Environment. Okay? And quickly tell me, if that risk, auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement, if that is high, just apply your judgment now. What you as an auditor will do, whether you will obtain more audit evidence with respect to that particular matter where the risk is high, or will you obtain less audit evidence? So students are saying, ma'am, we will have more audit evidence, which is absolutely correct. See, if the auditor assesses that there is a risk of material misstatement, let's take an example, related party transactions are there. Auditor, when he was identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement under essay 315, he assessed that the risk of material misstatement is high with respect to related party transaction. He will plan his audit procedures in such a way so as to obtain more audit evidence. Clear? My next question to you. Tell me, if I have an audit evidence which has very good quality. I'll give you an example. Suppose I am checking the FD, the fixed deposits. Okay? And I get an audit evidence. As an audit evidence, I get the original FDs. So I can say the quality of audit evidence is correct, is very good. Tell me, in this situation, can I obtain less audit evidence also? Just send in your reply yes or no. What is my question? Second part is, if I have a very good quality audit evidence, I gave you example of original FD in front of my eyes, and I am verifying the fixed deposits. Tell me, will I need more audit evidence, or this audit evidence is sufficient? So the answer is less audit evidence will be sufficient in this case, why the quality is very good. So more the quality, less audit evidence is fine. Okay? So less audit evidence is fine. Tell me, will vice versa also hold good? Can I say that I have more quantity of audit evidence, so it will compensate for the poor quality of audit evidence? No. So vice versa doesn't hold good. More quantity. I have audit evidence from 2-3 sources, but they are not qualitatively good. So I cannot say that ठीक है 2-3 evidence आ तो गए, it will compromise for the quality. No, it will not compensate for the quality of the audit evidence. That is, it will not compensate for the appropriateness of the audit evidence. ठीक है. So students, Shivam is saying, ma'am, less audit evidence will be fine if it is of good quality. Correct. Iske baad, I ask you a question, is vice versa also correct? That is, if I have more quantity, I have audit evidence from 2-3 sources, can I say that I can, this will compensate for the poor quality? No. Okay? So, Jamil is saying, ma'am, vice versa not possible. Okay. So what we have seen that sufficiency is a measure of what? Quantity. It is a measure of quantity. ठीक है, and it is affected by auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement. If risk of material misstatement is high, I'll require more quantity of audit evidence. If the quality is high, less audit evidence may be fine. Less audit evidence may be required. However, more audit evidence will not compensate for what? Poor quality of the audit evidence. ठीक है. Now, students, I just told you that how much audit evidence is sufficient. Sufficiency, it depends upon auditor's professional judgment. He's conducting the audit of an organization considering the risk of material misstatement. Let's say X and Y, two clients. The risk of material misstatement with respect to, say, debtors is high in case of X as compared to Y client. So auditor will apply his professional judgment and he may decide that ठीक है, X के लिए I'll obtain more audit evidence and Y के लिए maybe less audit evidence will be fine because the risk of material misstatement is what? Less. ठीक है. So now our next topic is what are the factors that affect the auditor's professional judgment regarding the sufficiency of audit evidence. ठीक है, and one answer you should able to give me. There are 3 points. One factor should be clear to you because we have just seen what? The risk of material misstatement. So if auditor feels, if auditors as per his professional judgment, if there is a higher risk of material misstatement, so the professional judgment will call the auditor and tell the auditor that auditor, the risk of material misstatement is high, obtain more audit evidence, attend the lectures with concentration. You need to learn after understanding. ठीक है, so send me the reply. Where have you studied about the concept of materiality? And the hint or hint to you is it is in chapter number 2. Send in your replies. I need answers. So I'll not run unless and until I'll get the reply. So what are the factors? ठीक है? What are the factors that affect my professional judgment as to the sufficiency of the audit evidence? So the first is materiality. Now, what is material? You have understood in chapter number 2 under essay dash. You need to fill that dash. I'm waiting for your replies. Where the material item has been explained as the items in the financial statement which influence the economic decisions of the users of the financial statement, right? So if any item is material, the auditor's professional judgment will tell the auditor that auditor, this is a very material item. It will have an influence on the economic decisions of the users of the financial statement. You do one thing, obtain more audit evidence, right? So I can say if any item is material, the audit evidence obtained will be more. And now students have sent in their replies that it is given in essay 320. Materiality in planning and performing an audit. What was the essay? Materiality in planning and performing the audit, essay 320. So if the materiality is higher, more audit evidence. Second point, risk of material misstatement is higher, auditor will apply his professional judgment and he will obtain more audit evidence. And last point is what? The size of population. Last point is what? Size of population. Now, students are giving me correct answers regarding the names of essay 315 and 320. Good for all those who remembers and not good for all those who don't remember. Okay? So start learning. Okay? So the third point with respect to factors that affect the auditor's judgment, professional judgment regarding the sufficiency is what? Size of population. Okay? So how will size of a population affect the auditor's judgment? Now let us try to understand this with the help of an example. So size of population. So I'll write it here. So let's take an example that the auditor is verifying the salaries. Okay? And it consists of, let's say, 1,000 salary transactions. And each of them are ranging between 20 to 25,000. So what can auditor do? Auditor can take a small sample and can obtain audit evidence with respect to this sample. So I can say where the population is small and homogeneous, auditor will what? He may obtain less audit evidence. Let's take another example. Auditor is verifying the salaries, but they range from 20,000 to 20 lakhs. So in this situation, and let's say there are, say, 10,000 transactions. So in this situation where the number of transactions are more, huge population is there, which is heterogeneous. What is meant by heterogeneous? Different. The dictionary meaning is what? Different. Okay? I hope the example is visible to all of you. So heterogeneous is what? Different. Hana? So when more population is there with heterogeneous population, that is different population, auditor, what can he do? Ranging from 20,000 to 20 lakh salaries are there. He may divide the population into groups. That 20,000 to 1 lakh, 1 lakh to 5 lakh, 5 lakh to, let's say, whatever groups they decide. And with respect to each of the group, he will what? Obtain the audit evidence. So I can say when the population, the size of the population is more and it is heterogeneous. What is meant by heterogeneous is what? Different. So more audit evidence will be required. Students, if you are unable to see the screen, don't worry, just listen to the lecture. I am speaking all the words from the module itself. Okay? So concentrate on the lecture. Okay? On what I am saying. So what are the factors? So factors affecting auditor's judgment as to sufficiency. Material misstatement. If the risk of material misstatement is more audit evidence will be required. Size of population, what we have seen, that less evidence would be required if smaller and more homogeneous. Homogeneous is what? Similar. On the other hand, in case of larger and more heterogeneous, the dictionary meaning is what? Different. More audit evidence would be required. I hope this is clear. Okay? So we have understood about sufficiency as to what constitutes a sufficiency, sufficient audit evidence, and what are the factors that affects the professional judgment of an auditor as to the sufficiency of an audit evidence. Now, appropriateness. Quickly, I'm waiting for your replies. Tell me, what do you understand by being appropriate? Appropriateness. Quickly, I am waiting for your replies. Appropriateness. What do you understand by being appropriate? Audit evidence being appropriate. So we will take a break here for 10 minutes, right? At 7:16 we will meet, and I hope by that time the network issue will be resolved. Okay, so a break of 10 minutes and then we'll start with appropriateness. So students, I hope you all are back after the short break. So before the break, we were discussing about sufficiency of audit evidence, and we have discussed the various factors that affects the auditor's professional judgment regarding the sufficiency of an audit evidence. Now, as I've told you that the auditors, like whatever audit evidence auditor is obtaining, it should be sufficient and appropriate. So sufficiency we have discussed, now appropriateness, right? So like sufficiency was a measure of quantity of audit evidence, appropriateness is a measure of what? Quality of audit evidence. I gave you example of fixed deposit. Suppose the auditor is checking the fixed deposits. If he get the fixed deposit, original fixed deposit advice in front of him, the quality is such that he can rely on that audit evidence. Right? So that is an appropriate audit evidence. Okay? Now, quality of audit evidence, it basically means whether the audit evidence is relevant. By relevance, I can say the dictionary meaning can be what? Useful or important for the auditor's purposes. And by reliability, we understand what? Whether you can trust, you can have trust on that audit evidence or not. Okay? So we have seen that appropriateness is what? It is the measurement of what? Quality of audit evidence. Okay? ऐसे वैसे audit evidence पे थोड़ी ना auditor will give his opinion. His audit evidence need to be sufficient and appropriate. And sufficiency is what? Measure of quantity, whereas appropriateness is measure of quality of audit evidence. And quality, it includes what? Whether it is useful or important for the auditor's purposes, and whether reliability means whether auditor can rely, can trust such audit evidence. Okay? Now let us see relevance and reliability in detail. Okay? So what I told you, relevance, the dictionary meaning means whether whether that audit evidence is useful to the auditor for the purposes of auditor. Okay? So it basically means the logical connection of that audit evidence with the purpose of audit procedures. Auditor wanted to verify whether the client organization is having the ownership of the building. Tell me, just by inspecting the building, let's say the auditor is checking the building. Okay? So auditor is inspecting, matlab he is looking at the building, he is inspecting, physically examining the building. Tell me whether by examining the building, by inspecting the asset, that is the building, whether the auditor can be sure about ownership assertion. No, right? So whatever audit evidence has been obtained, it should have a logical connection with what the purpose for which audit procedure has been performed. Okay? And what assertion the auditor wants to check. I mentioned an example formed by employees of the company that is called what? Observation. Okay? So when the auditor is observing the inventory, see, he will be able to be sure about existence assertion, that this inventory exists. But tell me, just by observing the inventory, will the auditor be able to be sure about valuation assertion? देखने से auditor को पता चल जाएगा what is the value? No, right? So whatever audit evidence you are obtaining, right, it should have a logical connection with what assertion you want to check. What is the purpose behind performing the audit procedure? So this is what? Relevance. Okay? So students are saying yes. So Charu is saying that in order to look at the ownership, the auditor needs to see the title deed of the building. Okay? So by inspecting, the auditor cannot, be sure about the ownership assertion. Okay? So any audit evidence, see, by inspecting the building, the auditor is able to what? He's able to obtain some audit evidence. But that is with respect to what? Existence of building and not ownership. Okay? So, correct, Charu? You have correctly said that he should inspect what the title deed of the building. Okay. Then what is meant by reliability? I told you that reliability, it is influence. Reliability is whether you can trust or not. Okay. Whether you can trust on the information and audit evidence. And students, it depends upon two factors. One is the source of audit evidence and one is the nature of audit evidence. So whether a particular audit evidence is reliable or not, it depends upon the source. What can be the source of audit evidence? It can be either internal to the organization or it can be external to the organization. Now, what is meant by internal audit evidence? Let's say some sales invoices there. Okay? So my client, it is making sales, so it will be issuing the sales invoice. So this document is what? Internal to the organization. Okay? Or let's take another example. I have asked the management to provide me with some aging schedule of debtors as to how old the debtors are. This is what? Internal audit evidence. Okay? So source is internal to the client. Okay? External. Let's say purchase invoice. My client is purchasing something. It must have obtained the purchase invoice from the party. Okay? So external. Let's take another example. I have asked for a balance confirmation from the debtor. I'm getting the confirmation from a third party, not internal to the client. It is external. Okay? So the reliability depends upon the source, which is internal or external. And second factor is nature of audit evidence. See, nature can be what? Visual, documentary, or oral. Now, what is meant by visual, documentary, or oral? Let's see. See, visual is what? When I observing the inventory, I am using my eyes to observe the inventory. This is what? Visual audit evidence. Okay? When I'm inspecting some documents, when I'm inspecting some paper, this is what? Documentary. If I'm inspecting the title deed of the building, it is what? Documentary. Okay? If I'm inspecting the building, it is what? Visual. And what is oral? Let's say I'm inquiring the management. Orally, I'm discussing something with the management. It becomes oral. The nature of audit evidence is what? Oral. So whether the reliability of an audit evidence depends upon these two factors. That is the source of audit evidence and the nature of audit evidence. Now, the next few questions that I'm going to shoot at you people are going to be very interesting. So I need answers. Tell me whether a document which is internal is more reliable or external is more reliable. Internal is which I obtained from the client itself, and external is what? Which I'm getting from the third party. So which is more reliable? Send in your replies quickly. Let's make this topic interactive and it is going to be interesting for you. Internal or external, which is going to be more reliable for you as an auditor? So Shivam is saying external, which is absolutely correct. Why? Because I am obtaining it from the third party who may not have the intention to manipulate the data, manipulate the information. So I can say external document is more reliable, right? My second question to you. When will an internal document be reliable? When the controls over that internal document are good or bad? So I can say that my internal document, as in the document which is internal to my client, that is going to be more reliable if the controls over that document are effective. The internal controls over that document are effective. Okay? So this was my second query. Now my third query to you people. Tell me, situation A, where I am receiving an audit evidence directly ठीक है. And situation B, whereby first of all the audit evidence is received by management, then management is providing that information to me. What is the first situation? Where suppose I have given a request of balance confirmation to the debtor. So in first situation I am receiving it directly. On the second hand, first the management is receiving it, then I am receiving it from the management. So can I say that information that is obtained directly by the auditor is more reliable? Yes or no? Quickly send in your replies. Yes or no? Yes or no? ठीक है. Okay. Now my next question. Tell me, is if written information more reliable or oral? A very simple question. So you may just write written or oral. Which is more reliable to be used as audit evidence by the auditor? So it is what? Obviously written. And my last question, for all those who have not answered, this is the last chance with respect to this topic. Are originals more reliable as audit evidence or photocopies? Very simple and very interesting topic. Are originals more reliable as audit evidence or photocopies? So let me just wait for the next 10 seconds. I'll definitely get the answers, I'm sure. So with respect to the fourth query, Shivam and Riya are saying, ma'am, direct response is more reliable. Or maybe the third query, that direct response are more reliable. ठीक है. And yes, students are saying, ma'am, written are more reliable with respect to fourth query. And yes, with respect to fifth, students are saying, ma'am, originals are more reliable. So what was our topic? I'll just collect all the information that we had just discussed. See, appropriateness is what? It is a measure of quality of audit evidence. Okay? And it is influenced by what? Whether the audit evidence, the information is what? Relevant and reliable. What is meant by relevance? It means that whatever information you are getting, you want to use as an audit evidence, that should have a logical connection with what? With the assertion that you want to check. Okay? Let's say the auditor wants to check the ownership of the building. So can he check this by performing what? Inspection of the building? No. In order to check the ownership, he will have to inspect the title deed. Okay? So it should have the relevance with the assertion to be checked and the purpose of the audit procedure. Right? Second is reliability. Reliability is influenced by the source and the nature. Source can be internal and source can be external. Now here, students, there were certain queries I would like to, add here something. That see, if any document is internal, it does not mean that start doubting it. No. If the controls are effective, you can rely on it. है ना? ऐसे तो you will not rely on any internal document, you will apply professional skepticism, but it does not mean that you will doubt on the honesty, on the integrity of the management. You can rely on internal audit evidence. What you can do is you can obtain internal audit evidence from two sources and see whether they support each other. Right? And same way, if any audit evidence is obtained from an external source, don't just blindly, trust that. It might be possible that third party is a related party, right? So you need to be alert to all the situations. Apply professional skepticism all the time, right? The nature of audit evidence can be visual, whereby you are, let's say, observing the inventory or inspecting the inventory. Documentary is when you have documents in front of you, for example, the title deed of the building. And oral is when you are asking certain information from the management, you are inquiring. Okay? And with respect to reliability, 5 questions that I have asked you and for which most of you have given the correct answers. So let us see. The reliability of audit evidence increases. This is what increases when it is obtained from independent source. So I can say external and see independent. It takes into account the example of what? Related party. Independent hona chahiye. ठीक है? And internal evidence, audit evidence will be more reliable when the related controls are effective. What is meant by related controls? That it should not happen that any document which is generated internally within the organization, that someone is manipulating that. No. The controls over the production of such documents should be effective. Form. We have just seen visual, documentary and oral. So documentary form are more reliable and the original documents are more reliable as compared to photocopies. So a very simple and a very interesting topic that we have covered. Clear? So first of all, today we have done our essay 500. Only one topic is left, that is about what all are the audit procedures, okay, which I'll be covering right now. Before starting with audit procedures, I want all of you to please send in your replies as to whether you have understood what constitutes an audit evidence, what is the responsibility of the auditor in terms of Essay 500, what is the definition of audit evidence in terms of Essay 500, the management expert work, the sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence. Quickly send in your replies. I really need your answers. Okay? So whether you have understood or not, do you have any query related to all these topics? Then I'll be starting with audit procedures. Very interesting. And I've got a number of queries on this topic. Okay? Because this word has started appearing from chapter number 1, but this is discussed in detail at this chapter, in this chapter. Okay? So send in your replies, first of all, whether you have understood so far. 230, essay 230 is on what? Audit documentation. Students, don't get confused. When I was asking you people about materiality, the essay number of materiality in planning and performing an audit is 320. Students were writing 230. So don't get confused. 230 is for audit documentation and essay 500 is what? Audit evidence. Okay? So students are saying, ma'am, it is clear. Okay? So now we are again and again using the word audit procedures, and I always tell you that in a common language, it means the procedures that are performed by the auditor to obtain audit evidence. Okay. So what exactly are audit procedures? And now here I will assume that in chapter number 2, you have clearly understood Essay 315, the risk assessment procedures, the further audit procedures under Essay 330. Okay. You have studied it under development of an audit plan, that the audit plan should include a description of the following. Okay? So assuming that you have understood that, you have attended those lectures with concentration. Now let us start. Okay? Astha is asking me about assertion. Astha, after the topic of audit procedures, now assertion will be discussing in detail, and I assure you that I'll take your topic there. Okay, regarding assertion. Okay. Now concentrate on audit procedure. Very, very important. Now, when you did Essay 315, students, and what is the name? I'll repeat here again because learning is what I always emphasize. Identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. Okay. So when you were developing an audit plan in terms of Essay 300, the first point was that the audit plan should include a description of planned nature, timing, extent of risk assessment procedures as determined under Essay 315, right? So first category of audit procedure is what? Risk assessment procedures. Once the auditor has identified and assessed the risk of material misstatement by understanding the entity and its environment under Essay 315, you have obtained the knowledge of the client business. If you remember, you did 5 points under knowledge of the client's business: external, internal, the objective, strategies, risk, the performance, accounting policies. Remember, in chapter number 2, you all have done. So risk assessment procedures are what? The audit procedures that an auditor performs. Why? To identify and assess the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. So once the auditor obtains an understanding of the risk of material misstatement, he identifies and assesses the risk of material misstatement under SA 315. The auditor prepare the responses to those risks under SA 330. What is the name of SA 330? The auditor's responses to assess the risk. Where has he assessed those risks? Under SA 315. Assess, identify और assess करने के बाद चुप बैठ जाना है क्या? नहीं. We will respond to those risks under SA 330. How? By performing further audit procedures. By performing what? Further audit procedures. See, further audit procedures are what? When the auditor has under 315 identified and assessed the risk, that what all risk of material misstatement. What is risk of material misstatement? That the financial statements may be materially misstated, whether due to fraud or error. Hana? So if there is such risk, auditor will respond to those risks. कैसे respond करेगा? बातें करेगा क्या risk से? नहीं. He will perform the audit procedures. He will perform further audit procedures in order to respond to those risks by performing under SA 330. And when auditor is performing further audit procedures, he will perform test of controls. What is test of controls? Students, test of control is when the auditor is checking what? Internal control. I will take all of these in detail. Just be with me. Test of control. When the auditor is responding to the assessed risk, where has he assessed the risk? Under SA 330. 315. And where is he responding to those risks? Under SA 330. Right? So when the auditor is responding to the risk which he has assessed in under SA 315, he will perform test of control. Test of control is what? As the name suggests, testing the internal control of the organization. And after testing the internal control, auditor will perform substantive procedures. Substantive procedure is what? Checking the financial statements. Right? And when the auditor is checking the financial statement, he can do these in two ways, that is test of details and substantive analytical procedures. Now, what are all these? I will taking all these in detail, okay? But abhi ke liye try to understand that audit procedure ka main bifurcation is into two parts, okay? So when the auditor has to assess the risk, see, assess kaise karega? By performing certain procedures na. So those are called risk assessment procedures, okay? Now, once he has identified and assessed, he needs to respond. Ab response kaise karega? By performing audit procedures. But now these audit procedures are called what? Further audit procedures. Okay? And when he is responding, he will check the internal control and then he'll check the financial statements. Kitna check karna hai, kab nahi karna, we will be discussing that in detail. Okay? So, either I want to clear one thing also. Students, see. Let's try to understand this chart with the help of an example. Okay? So there is one audit procedure, inquiry. Okay? Inquiry is what? When I'm asking the management about something. Okay? This is one of the audit procedures. Okay. Now, when I'm assessing the risk, I'm identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement. Under SA 315, I will inquire the management. Management, tell me. Please give me some knowledge of your business. Tell me who are your competitors. Tell me what is the demand supply. Tell me your accounting policies. What I'm doing one of the audit procedures, which is inquiry. But here this audit procedure is called risk assessment procedure. Okay? Because I'm identifying and assessing the risk. Okay? This is clear. Now, let's say, here, when auditor is testing the internal control, again auditor is inquiring. Auditor is asking the management, tell me how your internal control are actually working. ठीक है, how your let's say there is an internal control that all the bills are signed by 2 authorized signatory. So auditor is inquiring the management with respect to the effectiveness of the internal control with respect to the bills. Now tell me students, here also I am performing inquiry as an audit procedure, but here my audit procedure will be called what? Test of control. So the audit procedures remains the same. Right? Now, let us see this with respect to substantive procedure. Substantive procedure is what? Checking the financial statements. Okay? Now, let's say I'm checking the financial statement as an auditor and I'm inquiring the management. And management, please tell me, why have you shown this amount as a contingent liability? Why haven't you created a provision? Now, here I am checking the financial statement, and with respect to that checking, I am doing what? Inquiry. But here this inquiry, this audit procedure is what? Substantive procedure. So the procedures are what? Audit procedures. There are 7 audit procedures which has been prescribed by SA 500. You will be performing that only. But when you are as an auditor performing the audit procedure as risk assessment procedure, that is, you are identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement under SA 315, they will be called risk assessment procedures. When you are responding to that risk under SA 330, they are called further audit procedure. And to be more specific, when you are testing the internal control, applying the same procedure, this is what? My test of control, though this is audit procedure only. And when I'm checking the, let's say I gave example of provision and contingent liability, again I'm inquiring, I'm performing audit procedure, but here it will be what? Substantive procedure. Okay? So what is risk assessment procedure? You need to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment, including the internal control. While you are assessing, identifying and assessing, you are understanding the entity and its environment, and environment includes internal control. Okay? When you are responding to those risks, you are either testing the controls in detail. Why we'll be checking the controls, again we will be discussing in detail later on. And when you are performing the substantive procedures, see, procedures are the same. Woi 7 procedures hai, but their nomenclature will change depending upon the circumstance when you are using it. ठीक है? Quickly tell me, इतना clear है कि audit procedure है क्या, and risk assessment procedure, further audit procedure, test of control, substantive procedure, just a general understanding about these concepts, then only I'll proceed further. Quickly, I need replies, I need to cover a lot of topic. Tell me, इतना clear हुआ? ये चार्ट एक जनरल अंडरस्टैंडिंग मिली है इसकी कि प्रोसीजर वी आर परफॉर्मिंग दोज ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स ओनली, बट देयर नॉमेनक्लेचर विल चेंज बेस्ड ऑन व्हेन एंड व्हाई वी आर परफॉर्मिंग दोज. आई नीड आंसर, सेंड मी द रिप्लाईज वेदर यू हैव अंडरस्टूड और नॉट. ठीक है? So test of control is testing the internal control. Substantive procedure is when you are checking the financial statement, and it can be of 2 types, test of details and substantive analytical procedure. See, don't get confused between substantive procedures and substantive analytical. The word analytical here implies a lot of things. We will be doing that in detail. Okay? So, so who is saying? Pooja is saying, ma'am, basic. समझ आ गया. ठीक है, बेसिक ही समझाना था. नाउ इन डिटेल विल बी डूइंग. ठीक है, ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स क्या होते हैं? अभी वी विल सी व्हाट ऑल प्रोसीजर्स आर देयर व्हिच हैज बीन गिवन इन SA 500. पर इतना समझ आ गया कि कुछ भी काम करना है, वेदर आइडेंटिफाई और असेस करना है रिस्क को, और you want to check the financial statement, or you want to check the internal control, perform the audit procedure ही करना है. ठीक है? And you will see when we will be looking at the definition of all these risk assessment procedures, your test of control, substantive procedures, in सबका definition will start with what? Audit procedures. That risk assessment procedures are audit procedures performed during this and this stage. Test of control are audit procedures which are performed during for this purpose. Same way substantive procedures are what? Audit procedures. ठीक है? ठीक है. Now, what are the audit procedures that has been given by SA 500? So there are 7 audit procedures. So I have made a mnemonic for this. If you find it good, you may use it. If you get confused, you may ignore it. Okay? So ICAI ORR. I for inspection. C for external confirmation. C is for confirmation. A for analytical procedures. I for inquiry. O for observation. R is for recalculation, and the other R is for reperformance. So I learn it as this. This is just a learning technique. Otherwise, see, understanding will be required. Okay, everywhere. But yes, in order a remembering technique, you can say. Okay. So now we'll be discussing in detail as to what all these procedures are. Rakesh is saying, ma'am, how an audit reports look like. We will be doing this in detail. Like you will be doing this in detail in chapter number 11, whereby you will have the chance to look at the original audit reports of various companies. Okay, Rakesh? So, abhi, I'll not share that. So, audit procedures. See, audit evidence to draw reasonable conclusions on which auditor's opinion is based. Kaise milta hai? By performing risk assessment procedures. This is talking about SA 315. I'm assuming that you have understood what all are the provisions of 315 in your chapter number 2. Further audit procedures. This is what SA 330, which consists of test of control and substantive procedures. And substantive procedures further consist of test of details and substantive analytical procedures. So what all are the procedures? See, audit procedures can include inspection, observation, external confirmation, recalculation, reperformance, analytical procedures, and inquiry. Okay? So now let us try to understand what is inspection. See, when I as an auditor, I am examining a record, a document. Okay? That document can be internal to the organization or external. Sales invoice bhi ho sakta hai internal, and external bhi ho sakta hai, purchase invoice bhi ho sakta hai. Okay? It can be in paper form. It can be in paper form, or it can be in electronic form. Okay? So first of all, inspection is what? When you are examining certain record. Or I can also say inspection also includes physical examination of any asset. I gave you example of inspecting a building. Okay? So inspection involves examining the records or documents, whether internal or external, in paper form, electronic form, or other media, or a physical examination of an asset. ठीक है, इतना क्लियर है? Inspection, you are inspecting a document or an asset. ठीक है? See, when you are inspecting a document, quickly tell me, we have just done this topic, the reliability of that inspection, that audit procedure inspection, when I am inspecting a document, on what factors would the reliability depend? We have just done. Reliability depends upon 2 factors. What are those? Don't look at the module now. Answer. What are those? Reliability of when you are inspecting a document, it depends upon 2 factors. I have just discussed that in detail before the break. ठीक है, इंटरनल कंट्रोल पे होता है विवेक, when the internal document has been inspected, correct? ठीक है, और so the answer is what? The source and nature, है ना? We have just done. So it depends upon the nature and the source. ठीक है? And if you remember, I just gave you an example that when I as an auditor, I want to know about Acha, whose query was this? Astha, now listen to this assertion point again. So, let's say there is a building. It is coming at 1 crore. Okay, in my client's books of account. I want to know whether the ownership is with the client or not. Okay? Now, when I'm inspecting that building, I'm physically examining the building कि उसके corridors में घूम लिया, बाहर से देख लिया, I'm inspecting the building. At that time, after inspecting the building, I will be in a position to be sure about the existence assertion कि exist तो करता है building, but ownership assertion कि वो that building is owned by the client or not, ये तो नहीं पता चलेगा ना. Right? So there is a limitation of inspection, that when you are inspecting a document, a building or a document, you might be able to know about, let's say in case of a building, about the existence of that building, but ownership assertion ke liye to you will have to perform certain other procedures. Right? Let's say when you are inspecting the inventory, you can see कि इतना inventory exists, but it might be possible ना that inventory has been taken for job work purpose, right? So ownership valuation as such by inspecting cannot be seen. Asta, is your point now clear? Is this point clear now? Hana? So what is inspection? It involves examination of records and accounts. Documents, and those documents, records can be what, internal or external. Those can be in paper or electronic form or any other media, and it also includes physical examination of asset. Okay? And we have seen that the reliability depends upon nature and source. However, it might be possible that as an auditor, when I'm inspecting, I might not be able to obtain the evidence with respect to some other assertions. I gave you example of building and inventory. Okay? So this was about inspection. So when an auditor wants to obtain an audit evidence, suppose a title deed is there of the building, he can, when he is going through that title deed, what is he doing? He is inspecting. He is inspecting that document. So the audit procedure that has been performed by the auditor is what? Inspection. See, when we'll be discussing all the procedures now, you will see that we have discussed each and every audit procedure as an example, starting from the chapter number 1. Okay? But just to, understanding them as per SA 500. Okay? So you must have heard all these procedures from me in chapter number 1 or in chapter number 2 also. Okay? But let us just see what is the, the official term for that. So inspection you have seen. Examining the records or documents. Now, how to learn examining the records or documents? That record can be internal or external. That can be in paper, electronic or other form, and includes physical examination of assets. And the reliability depends upon nature and source. Okay? And when you are applying inspection, it might be possible that you are able to be sure about one assertion but not the other. For example, building and inventory ka example. Okay? Now, the second one is observation. Observation. You are observing. ठीक है? Inspecting में भी तो यही था ना? नहीं. There is a difference. You are observing. ठीक है? But observing what? Observing the procedure or process that has been performed by others. ठीक है? Inspecting में तो what can be done? Auditor is just strolling around and he's just looking at the building, है ना? He is not looking at any process ना. Building को ही तो देख रहा है, document को ही तो देख रहा है. Inspecting, ठीक है? Observation में क्या है? He is looking at the process or procedure being performed by others. It consists of, the keyword is looking at the process or procedure being performed by others. Let's take a very common example. I have just explained today itself that how physical inventory count take place. See, management has to include the figure of closing inventory in the financial statement. So it is the responsibility of the management of the client to get the physical inventory counted. But what is the responsibility of the auditor? To attend that physical inventory count. Now, when the auditor is attending that physical inventory count, auditor is observing the work, the physical inventory count which has been performed by what? The employees of the client, the personnel of the client. Okay? So this is observation. You are looking at the process being performed by others, and I hope now it is clear what is the difference between inspection. Inspection to kya? I'm roaming around, I'm looking at the building, I'm looking at a document. No one is performing any process. Observation mein I'm looking at the process. I can combine both the things. Ki when I'm looking at the process, I'm inspecting the paper also. I can combine both the procedures. But there is a difference between both the procedures. How can I combine? Like I'm observing that how the management personnel, how they are, conducting the physical inventory count. Side by side, I'm also inspecting of the stock that they have provided to me. So inspection and observation together can be done, but there is a difference between both the terms. Okay? So observation is it consists of looking at the process or procedure being performed by others. Now students, tell me, if I have given you some test, okay, and you feel that no one is looking at you, you might, copy from the book, or you may have discussions. Now tell me, if you have an idea that I am observing you, you are going to be a very sincere kid. So the fact that you are being observed, it will have an effect on how you perform, right? So same way, first of all, when I'm observing the process, it might happen na ki management ko pata hai ki abhi auditor is looking, bahut अच्छे से they will perform the inventory count, and जैसे ही the auditor is gone, that process is also gone. So there is a limitation that observation is limited to the point at which observation takes place. उसी time के लिए आपको पता चल रहा है ना कि whether वो work अच्छे से होता है या नहीं. And the act being observed, the fact that you are being observed, it may affect the process or the procedure, the way it is being performed. Okay? So let us see how beautifully this meaning comes out of these three lines. And very important line. See, observation provides audit evidence about the performance of a process or procedure, but is limited to the point in time at which the observation takes place. उसी point के लिए अच्छे से observation हो रहा है ना. And the fact that the act is being observed, you know that I am sitting on your head and I am observing you. How are you giving the test? It may affect how the process or procedure is being performed. So understood? Observation. So see, we have discussed it a number of times that auditor will perform this audit procedure. So out of the 7 audit procedures, one is what? Observation. The keywords are what? Looking at the process being performed by others. And what is the limitation? The fact that it is limited to the point when you are checking, when you are observing. Further, the act of being observed, it will influence, it will affect as to how you perform the procedure or how the process is being performed. Clear? Students, when at home, you will be reading all these, whatever we have done from the module. I want you people to, take these illustrations as homework. So in case you have any doubt, you can just ask your queries in the next session. Okay? And I assure you that once you give a reading with concentration to the chapter that we have done from the module, and you read each and everything, the illustrations, the examples, whatever is given in boxes, whatever is highlighted, everything is going to be very much clear to you. Okay? But only after listening to these lectures, no. You need to give a full concentration reading to the entire chapter. Okay? Now, what is external confirmation? I give this example so many times. So, abhi tak audit procedure we have discussed is what? Inquiry, inspection and observation. Okay? Now, external confirmation. Very simple. And students, we will be doing this in very much detail in Essay 505. So, abhi quickly I'll tell you See, when I as an auditor, I want to obtain an audit evidence with respect to what debtors balance. So what I can say, I'll say debtors, dear debtors, please give me a direct response in writing. So it is a direct written response. Kya response dena hai? That what is the balance of my client in your books? Or I can also say that tell me whether the balance of my client is 5 lakhs or not. Okay, these are the two kind of confirmation requests that can be sent, which we will discuss in SA 505. Abhi ke liye try to understand that one of the audit procedures is when auditor is asking for the balance confirmation from the third party, and that response is coming directly in writing to the auditor. Okay, now not only the account balances can be confirmed, various terms and conditions can also be confirmed from the party. The auditor may write to the third party that debtor, please tell me what is the discount that I have offered to you. What is the terms and conditions of your agreement? Okay? So rest in detail, we will be doing this in SA 505. Okay? Now, we have done three audit procedures. First is inspection, observation, and external confirmation. Okay? So students are saying, ma'am, we are finding it very interesting and we are able to understand it very easily. Good. And thank you for writing all these messages because they motivate us to, be more creative in our explanations. Now the next one is what? Recalculation. See, as the name suggests, let's say depreciation. Management has already calculated it, but management ne calculate kar diya, to is it enough? Nahin. We are examining the financials information, and depreciation is one of the financial informations, very important financial information. So I will check the mathematical accuracy. I may do it manually or electronically. So one of the audit procedures is what? Recalculation. It consists of checking the mathematical accuracy of documents or records. I gave you example of what? Depreciation. Recalculation may be performed manually or electronically. Simple. So this was what? The fourth audit procedures that we have discussed. So first was inspection, then was observation, then was external confirmation, and then was what? Recalculation. Reperformance. What is meant by reperformance? See, management has, as a part of internal control, prepared BRS, bank reconciliation statement. I'm reperforming this task independently. Okay? In order to see whether my outcome and the auditor and the client's outcome is same or not. I'm independently executing this procedure. पहले management ने किया था, BRS prepare किया था. Now I am independently reperforming. ठीक है, management का involvement नहीं है. I am independently performing this procedure. So it involves auditors' independent execution of procedures or controls that were originally performed as part of entity's internal control. Originally management ने perform किया होगा ना, BRS बनाया होगा ना. So I'll independently redo that, reperform that. Why? In order to see whether that is correct or not. ठीक है, ठीक है, समझ आता है. So we have done reperformance, and now two are left. One is analytical procedures. What is analytical procedure? So again, यहाँ पे I would like to say that this is covered in detail in SA 520. The name of the essay is what? Analytical procedure, and we will be doing this in detail in chapter number 8. But abhi ke liye try to understand. See, whenever the auditor is performing the audit procedures, he may just simply calculate the ratios. He may simply just, compare the data of the current year of his client with the data of the previous year. Or he may compare the data of his clients. Let's say GP ratio of my client this year is 10%. Other companies in the similar industry are having 15%. Why? So what is auditor doing? He's calculating the ratios. He's comparing this data with the companies in the similar industry, or he may compare the data with the previous year. Last year, my client had a GP ratio of 10%. Now, why 5%? So he's calculating and he's comparing. Hana? So a comparison, when he's evaluating the financial information, he's comparing the financial and non-financial data what is it called? Analytical procedures. And students, analytical procedures, if you remember, I discussed with you substantive analytical procedures in brief. So substantive analytical procedures or analytical procedures are one and the same thing. Okay? So analytical procedures is what? As of now, try to understand when I'm calculating ratios, I'm comparing the data and see when there will be some fluctuations. For example, my client is into a toy manufacturing industry. Okay? So my client GP ratio from 10% last year to 12% this year. Other companies in the similar toy manufacturing industry, they have jumped from 10% to 15%. Now, why my client 10% to 12%, others are 10% to 15%? So when there are fluctuations, I'll investigate that. That is why it is written investigation of identified fluctuations and relationships that are inconsistent with the relevant information or deviate significantly from predicted amounts. तो अभी के लिए क्या समझना है कि ratios calculate हो रहे हैं, comparisons हो रहे हैं, and if there are any fluctuations, they are being investigated. ठीक है? Investigated मतलब उनका और detailed examination करना है कि what is the reason. Otherwise, essay 520, chapter number 8. ठीक है? So Sonu is saying, ma'am, recalculation or reperformance को दोबारा बताना. So recalculation is what? You are recalculating the depreciation. You are recalculating, let's say, the provision for doubtful debts that management has made. Reperformance is, see, I cannot say you will recalculate BRS. I'll say you will reperform it. Anna? You will make it again. I'll not say you will recalculate the BRS. Okay? So just a difference of the nomenclature. And plausible, who is saying Ria, plausible, I just told you that we will be doing this in great detail in chapter number 8, but plausible, the dictionary meaning is reasonable, justifiable relationship, possible relationship among financial and non-financial data. Okay? I hope it is clear. हाँ तो what is your query exactly, Charu? Example, she's saying to explain this example relating to observation. See, auditor's observation of inventory counting by entities personnel or of the performance of control activities, how the things are controlled, how the controls, internal controls are actually working, or how the inventory has been counted. Auditor will observe that. How will he observe that? The process has been performed by others and he'll just have a look at that process. Okay, I hope Charu, your doubt is clear. Sonu, your doubt is clear, and Priya, your doubt is also clear. Okay, so analytical procedure, and last is what? Inquiry. Now tell me one thing. Inquiry, thoda to samajh aata hai that inquiry is you are obtaining the information. Tell me, can I obtain the information from the peon of the organization or from the pantry boy? Charu, side agreement I'll be taking when I'll discuss essay 505 in detail. ठीक है, अब मेरे को बताओ inquiry. My question is just write yes or no. Can I inquire from the peon? अच्छा, peon, tell me what are the related party transaction, और pantry boy से बताओ what are the risk associated with your organization. Tell me quickly yes or no. Quickly, I need answers. And answer is saying that, ma'am, I'm tired, but still I'm finding it very interesting. I'm able to understand. Answer, that's good. Okay, quickly tell me. Can I inquire from the peon or the pantry boy? No. I need to inquire. Inquiry is what? You are seeking information, okay? But from knowledgeable persons, na? Peon se jaake thodi na I'll get the information. ठीक है. So knowledgeable person, both financial and non-financial. Financial में तो जैसे I asked the management कि management tell me provision दिखाना है, contingent liability दिखाना है, तो this is related to what finances. ठीक है. Non-financial में okay, management tell me how your input-output process works. What is your production process? है ना. So I want to know about how you hire the staff. ठीक है. Just how your internal control works. ठीक है. And those persons can be within the entity or outside the entity. ठीक है. And tell me one more query. My query to you, and most probably the last query from my side. Is this inquiry, when I am obtaining audit evidence by way of performing inquiry as an audit procedure, tell me, will this constitute a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence? Please apply your professional judgment and tell me. Tell me yes or no. Will it constitute a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence? Quickly. Most probably this is going to be the last topic for today, because iske baad there is a new topic. This audit procedures wala topic will be finished. Tell me, students, now if I tell you that ठीक है, आपको audit evidence लेना है ना, just inquire the management. So I as an auditor, I'll do one thing, I'll inquire the management. Okay, management, come here and tell me whether your internal controls are working effectively. Management will say yes. Whether your debtors are properly accounted for, management will say yes. Whether your incomes are properly shown, management will say yes. Whether your assets, liabilities, everything is shown properly, management will say yes. And I'll give my opinion. That financial statement reflect a true and fair view. Why? Because I have inquired from the management. Management have said this to me. No. Inquiry provides you with necessary audit evidence. So inquiry gives you a necessary audit evidence, but inquiry alone is not a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Inquiry is an audit evidence. It will provide you with a necessary audit evidence, but student, it is not a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So whenever you are inquiring, you may perform other audit procedures. You are inquiring the management about the internal controls. Na? Inspect the manuals of the internal control. You are inquiring the management, that management tell me how your inventory count has been done. Combine it with observation na? And inquiry. You are inquiring the management tell me how your BRS, do you make bank reconciliation statement? Yes. Management is saying yes. Okay, you are inquiring now, combine it with re-performance now. So inquiry provide a necessary audit evidence, but inquiry alone will not provide you with the sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Very, 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 very important. Hana? And inquiry will be done. Inquiry is what? Seeking information from what? The knowledgeable persons. It can be financial, non-financial. It can be within the entity, outside the entity. And see, inquiry is used extensively throughout the audit. ठीक है ना, हर चीज पूछो गई ना मैनेजमेंट से ऑडिट करते हुए, ऑडिट मैनेजमेंट ये क्यों है, ये कैसा है, ये कैसे होगा. बट इन एडिशन टू अदर ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स, मैनेजमेंट के कहने पे भरोसा कर लोगे तो फिर मैनेजमेंट ने फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स तो दे ही दिया ना. सो इंक्वायरी अलोन इज नॉट sufficient appropriate audit evidence. An inquiry can be formal written inquiries or informal oral inquiries. And then evaluating the responses to the inquiries. You have inquired, management has given you some response, you need to evaluate that. Usko file mein rakh nahi lena hai bas ki audit documentation banana nahi. You need to evaluate that, and this is an integral part of inquiry process. ठीक है. So with this we have, like I have tried to explain you in the best way I can all the audit procedures, ठीक है? And these examples you can just go through. First of all, quickly tell me, have you been able to understand these procedures, and have you been able to understand what is the difference between, you know, like inspection and observation, recalculation, re-performance, है ना? So I'll just recapitulate we have done audit procedures like inspection, observation, external confirmation, recalculation, re-performance, analytical procedures, and inquiry. Okay, I'm waiting for your replies whether you have understood and is there any query. So quickly tell me. And before going to the next topic, I will quickly recapitulate whatever we have done so far in this chapter. Okay? And students, these revisions are the 10 minutes revision that we do at the end of the chapter. These are really very useful. Just attend one or two, like I will always revise whatever we have done in 10 minutes. So these quick revisions will help you in your exams also. One day prior to your exams, how you need to revise. Hana? And this you will be able to remember all the topics in this chapter that we have done so far. Okay? So, abhi students don't say thank you. Students are saying, ma'am, we have understood everything, enjoyed a lot. Don't say thank you and bye. I need to revise and I'll be discussing about risk assessment procedures before ending this session for today. Okay? So be with me. Okay? Sandeep is saying, ma'am, crystal clear. Pooja is saying, ma'am, understood, enjoyed. Okay. But please be with me. And one more thing, I have given you certain practice questions for chapter number 1. For all those who have not done them, I've discussed all of them with you, but please, only understanding is not sufficient and only learning is also not sufficient. Try to practice those questions by writing, because you will fetch good marks only with respect to what you will write in your paper. Right? Okay. So Parth is saying, ma'am, we are with you and we will revise. Okay. So let's quickly have a look at whatever we have done so far. Students, start learning. Learning is very, very important. Okay? So we started our chapter with essay 230. The name of the essay is Audit Documentation. Very simple name, but please don't confuse it with essay 320 as I've just seen earlier. Hai? Some of you were saying, ma'am, materiality ka essay is 239. Materiality is 320 and audit documentation is 230. So every essay deals with auditor's responsibility. So what auditor's responsibility is contained in essay 230? It deals with the auditor's responsibility to prepare audit documentation for an audit of financial statement. And I told you that individual requirements are given in specific essays, but those do not limit the requirement of this essay. जो वो वाले essay हैं जैसे 300, 320, 315, they are talking about the documentation with respect to whatever has been covered there. Hana? But this audit documentation, it says that throughout the audit, you need to maintain audit documentation. Now, what is audit documentation? I told you how to learn. Just try to understand logically. What an auditor does, he performs audit procedure. Why? To obtain relevant audit evidence. Why? To draw the auditor's conclusion. So record of audit procedures performed, relevant audit evidence obtained, and the conclusions auditor reached is audit documentation as per SC 230. What is the objective? So that it will provide an evidence that audit was planned and performed in accordance with essay and legal and regulatory requirements, and that a sufficient and appropriate record of the basis of auditors repeated. And what is the nature of audit evidence? It has the nature of providing evidence. First evidence is the same, that plan and performed in accordance with essay, and the second one is that the overall objectives. Now, where are the overall objectives mentioned? Essay 200 may. Don't try to, just relate the topics from the earlier chapters also. Okay? So, an audit evidence that which provides you the basis of conclusion about the achievement of the overall objectives of the auditor. What is the purpose? I told you, it helps the engagement team to plan and perform, to direct, supervise and review, and to hold accountable. Okay? It acts as a record for future audits. It provides you inspection ke 2 points ke internal inspection and external inspection. Okay? Then is what? Form content. As such, no standard form, but it should help the experienced auditor. It should enable the experienced auditor having no previous connection. I gave you example of CAZ, CAA with the audit to understand what NTE of audit procedure. Next class is going to be very, very important. We will be discussing NTE. What is NTE? Nature, timing, extent of audit procedures. Okay? Then the results of audit procedures performed and audit evidence obtained and significant matters and the professional judgment. And auditor, when you are documenting का क्या मतलब है, उससे related papers को एक file में रख रहे हो, ठीक है? So the audit procedures, you need to document the identifying characteristics of specific items, who performed the audit procedure, the date, who reviewed the date and the extent of such review. And when you are documenting the significant matters, the professional judgments, then significant matter, let's say related to some fraud, related to related party. So you must have discussed with the management now. So what were the discussions? When were the discussions taken place with whom? And if any inconsistency was there, how you address that. Okay? And it depends on various factors, size, complexity of entity, nature of audit procedures, identified risk of material misstatement, etc. We discussed this in detail कि अगर ROMM risk of material misstatement ज्यादा होगा तो ज्यादा documentation होगा, क्यों आप ज्यादा procedure करोगे, ठीक है? तो we have discussed this. What are the examples? It can be on paper और आपके laptop में भी हो सकता है, electronic form में भी हो सकता है. Everything which has been included in this green box, audit program, analysis, memoranda is what summary. All these are what audit documentation. But क्या नहीं होता audit documentation? Any superseded draft. Superseded is what? Which has been replaced over by, taken place over by some other calculation, some other paper. For example, आपने कोई calculation किया depreciation का, अब उसकी जगह आपने will enhance the quality, it will help in effective review, है ना? And if any documentation is maintained after the audit work, तो chances are there कि it is going to be less accurate, ठीक है? तो करना कैसे है? क्या एक ही फाइल में सारे क्लाइंट्स के डॉक्यूमेंट्स लगाने हैं? नहीं, यू नीड टू मेंटेन एन ऑडिट फाइल. It can be as a box file, physical form में हो सकता है, या it can be as a folder on your laptop, ठीक है? So one or more folders or other storage media in physical electronic form containing records that comprise the audit documentation for a specific engagement. Assembly कैसे करना है? टाइमली बेसिस पे करनी है. But SQC 1 says, first of all, रिटेंशन के लिए या प्रिपरेशन के लिए फर्म हैज टू एस्टैब्लिश द पॉलिसीज एंड प्रोसीजर्स. बट एसक्यूसी में कुछ टाइम दिया गया है. व्हाट इज दिस? 60 days फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ द ऑडिट रिपोर्ट आप असेंबली कर सकते हो. But during these 60 days, no new audit procedures. Why? Because audit report to already has been signed now. So no new audit procedures, only work of administrative nature. Administrative is what? Mechanical kind of nature work, like deleting or discarding superseded documents, sorting, collating, cross-referencing working papers, signing off, or documenting an audit evidence जिस पे पूरा टीम ने agree किया हुआ है. आप बस उसको इकट्ठा कर रहे हो, ठीक है? And retention is not shorter than 7 years from the date of the auditor's report. ठीक है? And when you are documenting the significant matters, the professional judgment, so it is explained as to what constitutes significant matter. So any matter which give rise to significant risk, जैसे under SA 315 you have your assessment of risk of material misstatement, document that. If you revise that assessment, document that. ठीक है? If you are unable to apply any essay, any procedure which has been given in essay, document that ना. क्यों भाई, क्यों नहीं कर पा रहे हो? ठीक है? And professional judgment में, for example, management judgment, you are analyzing the management judgment with respect to provision, accounting estimate, है ना? So whether that is correct or not, you must have applied your professional judgment and document that. Why? Because an experienced auditor having no previous connection with this client, he should be able to understand even your professional judgment, है ना? So read this. What is completion memorandum? It might be possible कि कुछ significant matters है, तो वो ओवरलुक ना हो जाए when you are looking at the documentation of the previous year. तो उसका क्या solution है कि completion memorandum, the dictionary meaning is what? Summary, और audit documentation summary के form में have a summary of what? All the significant matters and how they were addressed. So chances कि ये आपके significant matters overlook हो जाए, these will be nullified. ठीक है? Ownership, SQC 1 says, unless regulation requires, law and regulation, it is the property of the auditor. And then I ask you a question whether confidentiality will be hampered if the auditor is showing the documents to the client itself. So no. But yes, auditor at his discretion, उसकी मर्जी है, at his discretion may make portions or extracts of documentation available to the clients, but it should not undermine the validity of the work performed. I told you, ऐसे नहीं दिखाना है कि audit program दिखा दे कि surprise check कब हो रहे हैं, है ना? ऐसे तो the surprise element will not be there ना, तो it will undermine the validity of the work performed. क्या work perform किया है कि आपने audit program बनाया ना, audit program is one of your audit documentation, तो वो थोड़ी ना दिखा दोगे कि किस date पे surprise check हो रहा है. Then we start with audit evidence. SA 500 which says, SA 500 बताता है कि what constitutes an audit evidence. ठीक है, what constitutes an audit evidence and what is the responsibility of the auditor with respect to designing and performing audit procedures, obtaining audit evidence, drawing conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. So audit evidence is information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusion on which auditor's opinion is based, and that information can be information contained in accounting records underlying the financial statement. Students, these are keywords, you need to learn them. Underlying the financial statements and other information. Other information what? That authenticates the accounting records and that supports the auditor's rationale behind the true and fair presentation of financial statement. What is rationale? The belief or the reasoning of the auditor that financial statements are true and fair. And what is authenticate? Validates. Example, your minutes, your written confirmation manual. See, second point में whatever example are given, and these are not used for preparation of financial statement, but they validates them. ठीक है? Objective, you know, information अगर management expert से आता है, तो you will see the competence, the capability, the objectivity. You will obtain an understanding of that expert work, and you will see whether that expert work is appropriate for the audit evidence for the relevant assertion that you want to check. ठीक है, एंड एंटिटी से लेते हो तो एक्यूरेसी, कंप्लीटनेस, वेदर इट इज सफिशिएंटली प्रिसाइज एंड डिटेल है या नहीं. ठीक है, कंसिस्टेंसी, इनकंसिस्टेंसी है, डाउट है, तो व्हाट विल यू डू? यू विल मॉडिफाई, you will add certain audit procedure, and also auditor consider the effect of that matter on the other aspects of the audit. This we have seen कि कहाँ से audit evidence आता है, primarily from the audit procedures, but previous audit से, accounting record से, and you know management expert से आता है. ऑडिट एविडेंस सपोर्ट या कोरोबोरेट एक दूसरे को करते हैं, या जो मैनेजमेंट ने असर्शन दिया है उसको सपोर्ट करता है, या कॉन्ट्राडिक्ट भी कर सकता है, और एब्सेंस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन इज ऑल्सो व्हाट योर ऑडिट एविडेंस. ठीक है, सफिशिएंसी इज व्हाट क्वांटिटी, है ना? Sufficiency is what? Quantity, and it is affected by auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement. ज्यादा रिस्क होगा, ज्यादा ऑडिट एविडेंस क्वांटिटी लेंगे. ठीक है, क्वालिटी अच्छा है तो कम ऑडिट एविडेंस ले सकते हो. आई गेव यू एग्जांपल ऑफ व्हाट FD, है ना? बट वाइस वर्सा इज नॉट पॉसिबल. आप ये नहीं बोल सकते कि क्वांटिटी अच्छा है तो क्वालिटी के साथ कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर सकते हैं, नहीं. एंड व्हाट आर द फैक्टर्स दैट अफेक्ट द ऑडिटर्स जजमेंट एज टू सफिशिएंसी ऑफ ऑडिट एविडेंस? द मटेरियलिटी, द रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट, साइज एंड कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन. स्टूडेंट्स, प्लीज टेल मी whether this revision is helping you or not, and whether you have understood or not. Just a reply from your side will motivate me to continue. ठीक है, so what is appropriateness of audit evidence? It is the quality, and quality is influenced by what? Relevance. Relevance is what? Logical connection of your audit procedure with audit information, with the assertion that you want to check, and with the audit procedures purpose. ठीक है, and reliability is what? It is influenced by source and nature. Source can be external, internal and external, and nature can be visual, documentary or oral. ठीक है, and we have seen that any external audit evidence is more reliable. Internal is reliable if the controls are effective. Then you saw that documentary is more reliable as compared to oral. Originals are more reliable, and if you have obtained as an auditor directly that audit evidence, that is more reliable. Students are saying, ma'am, it is very much helpful. Good. Chalo, good. Pooja is saying it is making our doubts clear. ठीक है, अब sources of evidence you can just have a read. We have discussed कि internal होता है, external होता है, everything we have these. और corroborative का क्या मतलब होता है? Supporting. corroborate word you will come across a number of times. Supporting. ठीक है, you can just read this. What are the audit procedures? ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे we did कि what are the audit procedures. So first of all we'll have a look at inspection. Inspection is what I will be picking up the keywords. ठीक है, try to understand now how you have to learn. Examining the records or documents, internal or external, paper, electronic or other media, or physical examination of an asset. ठीक है, and it has varying degree of reliability depending upon the source and nature. ठीक है, and in case of internal records, then on the effectiveness of the control over their production. There was a doubt with respect to controls over their production. What does that mean? कि internal document है, ऐसा तो नहीं है someone is manipulating those documents, so there should be effective internal control over the production of such internal document. ठीक है. Then what is mentioned there, I have explained you कि एक assertion, suppose you want to know about the ownership just by inspecting the building, that is not possible. उससे तो existence पता चलेगा, है ना? So same way for inventory. So you can just have a read. कोई doubt होता है तो next class में you can ask. Observing is what? See, this diagram should help you in remembering कि you are observing the process or procedure being performed by others, है ना? So example, inventory count, है ना? But what are the limitations? That it is limited to the point when the observation takes place, and the fact that you are being observed may affect how the process or procedure is performed. All the illustrations, all the examples are your homework. ठीक है? External confirmation. It is what? It represents audit evidence obtained by auditor as a direct keyword, written keyword, response to the auditor keyword, ठीक है, from the third party keyword, and it can be in paper, electronic or other media. सिर्फ accounts, balances नहीं, you can also see what terms and conditions are there, and the absence of conditions. There is a word mentioned, side agreements, for which I am getting the queries, but I'll be discussing that in detail. Essay 505. Recalculation, you are recalculating, you are checking the mathematical accuracy of documents or records, and recalculation can be done manually or electronically. Reperformance, auditor's independent execution of procedures. See, the keywords involves auditor's independent execution of procedures or controls that were originally performed as a part of entity's internal control. I gave you example of VRS. ठीक है. Analytical procedures. अभी के लिए बस try to understand कि this is what evaluation of financial information. You are studying the plausible, that is the reasonable relationship between financial and non-financial data. And in case of any identified fluctuation, ignore कर देंगे क्या? नहीं यार, we are giving expert opinion. We will work on that. We will investigate that. अब investigate का मतलब official investigation वाला नहीं है जो chapter number 1 में किया था. It means you will check that in detail. ठीक है? Inquiry, seeking information of knowledgeable persons. Both financial and non-financial. Entity के अंदर भी हो सकते हैं, बाहर भी हो सकते हैं. But inquiry is necessary audit evidence. It is not sufficient and alone on its own. And it can be written inquiry, formal, ये सब हो सकता है. और ये example you can just have a look. ठीक है? उसके बाद अभी wait. This topic, I will take this topic from my summary. ठीक है. सो वी सॉ दैट ये सारे 7 के 7 ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स हो सकते हैं. ठीक है. तो अभी ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स, see, when the auditor is under SA 315, he is identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement. कैसे? Through understanding the entity and its environment. तो वो कैसे करेगा? कुछ ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स ही तो करेगा ना. तो उस टाइम पे when the auditor is identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement, तो उस टाइम पे when the auditor is performing certain audit procedures, they are called what? Risk assessment procedures. ठीक है. When the auditor is responding to those risk under SA 330, procedures तो same ही रहेंगे ना, all those 7 procedures, but these will now be called what? Further audit procedures. And more specifically, when he is testing the internal control, they will be called test of control. And when he is checking the financial statement in detail, those will be called substantive procedures. And someone was asking me, ma'am, किसका रिप्लाई करना है? संदीप, send in your query again. Someone was asking me, ma'am, कि सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर और सब्सटैंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर में डिफरेंस है, हाँ बहुत बड़ा डिफरेंस है, एनालिटिकल वर्ड का डिफरेंस है, एग्जैक्टली क्या डिफरेंस है वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग इन आवर नेक्स्ट सेशन, ठीक है। सो बिफोर कमिंग फॉर द नेक्स्ट सेशन, students, I request you all to please read the entire module till the page that we have done, ठीक है, then only you will be able to take the full advantage of the next sessions. And for all those who have not, maybe because of some reasons, not attended the earlier sessions, chapter number 1 and 2, please attend them on watch them on YouTube, and see, I suggest you to attend the live lectures because your queries also get resolved, है ना. But still, in case you have missed any of the lectures, please attend them. Understanding must be clear when you are attending the lectures attentively, but learning part is to be done on your part, है ना. The techniques, how to logically think, all that we can tell you, but learning, please, I am emphasizing on learning again and again. So before coming for the next session, please be sure that you have read the entire chapter till the page we have covered in the module. Read all the illustrations, all the example, everything is to be read. Give a full attentive reading to the entire chapter, ठीक है. और उससे पहला वाला भी चैप्टर नंबर 1 का प्लीज डू प्रैक्टिस दोज क्वेश्चंस which has been given, and descriptive को ना try to attempt 1 or 2 questions in writing, because paper में orally थोड़ी ना बताना है, you need to write ना, so practice them by writing, ठीक है. So hoping that you have understood. Sandeep, what is your doubt? Assembly of final audit file, ठीक है. तो बेसिकली क्या है, देखो, जब आपका ऑडिट फाइल आपने डॉक्यूमेंटेशन बनाया, सो सपोज आई एम कंडक्टिंग द ऑडिट ऑफ से 4 क्लाइंट्स, ठीक है. तो नाउ दी क्वेरी में कम इन माय माइंड कि मैं सबका पेपर, सबका डॉक्यूमेंट्स कहना कीप इन 1 फाइल, एक फोल्डर बना लूं, नहीं. व्हाट यू हैव टू डू इन टर्म्स ऑफ ऐसे 230 विद रिस्पेक्ट टू स्पेसिफिक एंगेजमेंट, द वर्ड इज स्पेसिफिक एंगेजमेंट, सभी क्लाइंट के स्पेसिफिक एंगेजमेंट के लिए ना 1 या 2 फोल्डर्स बनाओ जिसमें उससे रिलेटेड सारा पेपर आए, ठीक है. अब इट माइट बी पॉसिबल कि व्हेन यू वर कंडक्टिंग द ऑडिट आपके पेपर स्कैटर्ड है ना, तो SQC1 has given you a 16 days time to assemble the file. काम तो कर चुके हो, तभी तो ऑडिट रिपोर्ट साइन कर दिया ना, बट इन ऑर्डर टू असेंबल दोज डॉक्यूमेंट्स, है ना, जब आप पेपर लिखते हो उसके बाद लास्ट में आप उसको टाई करते हो ना, पेपर तो लिख चुके हो ना, बट एक साथ टाई करते हो ना उसको, तो सेम डे वर्किंग हैज बीन डन, बट उसको एक साथ इकट्ठा तो करना है ना पेपर्स को. सम पेपर में बी लाइन विद एनी ऑफ द आर्टिकल असिस्टेंट, तो असेंबली के लिए टाइम दिया हुआ है 60 डेज का आफ्टर द डेट ऑफ ऑडिट रिपोर्ट, बट उस टाइम पे नो न्यू ऑडिट प्रोसीजर. व्हाई? बिकॉज यू हैव ऑलरेडी साइंड योर ऑडिट रिपोर्ट, यू कैन जस्ट परफॉर्म द वर्क ऑफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव नेचर, जैसे कि इकट्ठा किया. सॉर्टिंग, वर्ड इज व्हाट? सॉर्टिंग, है ना. अरेंजिंग सिस्टमैटिकली, सॉर्टिंग का मतलब. कोलेटिंग, कलेक्टिंग, आर्टिकल स्टाफ के पास भी तो पड़ा हो सकता है ना पेपर, तो उसको कलेक्ट करके असेंबल करना है. वर्क ऑफ व्हाट? मैकेनिकल नेचर, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव काइंड ऑफ वर्क. सुपरसीडेड डॉक्यूमेंट्स, जब व्हेन यू आर परफॉर्मिंग द ऑडिट ना, बड़े सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स आ गए, फर्स्ट वर्किंग, सेकंड वर्किंग, तब आपने डिलीट नहीं किया, आप कर दो ना, दैट इज अलाउड, ठीक है. तो असेंबली ऑफ ऑडिट फाइल, ठीक है. संदीप, इज योर डाउट क्लियर? So students, I need your replies that whether you have understood or not. ठीक है. So thank you for the extra 10 minutes that you have given me. Thank you for your patient listening. And I want you all to, please come after reading the module till where we have done. ठीक है. So thank you and a good night. Thank you. हाँ, done.